Welcome back, everybody, to the Back Pocket Podcast. We're back at you with our weekly episode of the NFL, obviously recapping this past week. Welcome back to episode 13. I got it right this time. Shout out my roommate in the background that's kind. Speaking of names, my name is Kian McDermott, and I'm joined by my two lovely co-hosts tonight.
Feeling pretty good. It feels a bit, I wouldn't say nostalgic because it hasn't been that long, but it definitely feels good. Feels good. But excited to talk ball. The Jets, big win. So
I can't say I'm happy after last night
Yeah, I
because of
can't.
the atrocities that happened. But I am happy to be back on, and let's go.
We have very good topics for you guys today. We'll be recapping the 49ers and Eagles losses. We'll be talking about the Detroit Lions as they are currently tied right now for the best record in the NFL. If we think they are Super Bowl contenders, talking about the Bills and Chiefs, although they won, is there cause for concern in the AFC? Are the Bengals finally back? Which team do we think will tank for Caleb Williams? So kind of throwing in an extra topic for you guys there, and then saying who is the NFL MVP. So packed episode as we head to the halfway mark here of the NFL season. Let's hop right into it. Let's recap each game. So obviously we talked about in these past, it's kind of been a theme in our past episodes, which I think is really good. I think it's a good thing about being consistent is we have themes without it. And one of them has been Serge talked about a couple episodes ago, how the NFC he thinks is not that far off from the AFC now. And I think you can definitely make that argument. But especially we have the 49ers and Eagles, two best teams in the NFC. I think the 49ers, in my opinion, were the best team in the NFL this past, going into this past week. Obviously, the 49ers lose to the Cleveland Browns, not even with Deshaun Watson, and then the Eagles lose to the New York Jets. We can recap both. We can kind of talk about how they play into each other. Obviously, the two best teams in the NFC, arguably the two best teams in the NFL right now. Charlie, I'll go to you first. What do you think about this 49ers loss? And I actually really want to talk about Brock Purdy because I know a lot of stuff is going around about him, but I guess kind of just give us a general view on what you thought about that 49ers game.
I didn't think much of it. I think this was a fluke loss. It happens to the best of us. Brock Purdy had never lost a regular season game in his career before this. It was going to happen eventually. It happened this week. It was a weak team to do it against, but also the number one weapon in the league was injured. Brock Purdy's number one receiver for most of his career was injured. So I really am not going to chalk up this one as like a sign of things to come for the Niners. I think they'll be back to winning ways next week.
yeah, I agree with that sentiment, really. And I still think the Niners are the best team in the NFL. I think as
Yep.
long as they're healthy. I think the main concern really is if either of Christian McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel will be out for an extended period of time. But if it's just like minor injuries, they'll be fine. I think this was kind of the textbook trap game. The Browns came in with the number one ranked defense in the National Football League. And obviously losing those weapons didn't hurt. Trent Williams was also playing hurt. And we saw that because Myles Garrett completely dominated him, and Purdy, obviously, he himself didn't have a very good game. And despite all that, they were missed 40-yard field goal away from winning that game and going 6-0. So I think obviously disappointing that Purdy really struggled without his weapons. But again, other than injuries, I don't see it as really much room for concern for the Niners. I still think they're the best overall roster in the NFL.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's definitely a tough one just because you would hope that Brock Purdy would lose his first game to a more competent team. Obviously, PJ Walker, Serge knows a little bit about him. Serge,
Yeah.
never forget
PJ Walker
Serge
is. I mean, he is. I mean, he is. I've been proven right. I was
the video
He
of
is
Serge.
what?
vindicated. He's a starting NFL quarterback. I asked if he had the potential, but he does. I'm kidding, but like, anyways, he
No, no,
wasn't horrible.
no one will ever forget the very awkward clip of Serge. I think we were sophomores in high school of Serge going,
I'm not
PJ
sure how many
Walker,
people even saw that.
PJ Walker, is he a starter in the NFL? It's when we used to do those clips of just like takes that we had. Maybe we'll bring them back.
The
Serge, if you do
bathroom
another PJ.
clips, those
Yeah.
were legendary.
Nah, bro.
But yeah, I mean, here's my and I completely agree with you guys in terms of with Brock Purdy. And I will say, playing devil's advocate, it's just that kind of thing where it's like, does Brock Purdy have the ability to really, go that extra mile, I guess you could say, like win a Super Bowl? Because the 49ers are 100% in their Super Bowl timeline. Like they're in that timeline to win a Super Bowl. And I think obviously credit to Brock Purdy because look, it is no secret to anyone that Brock Purdy, for his style, was put in the absolute perfect system for him. I think Brock Purdy would not be a very good quarterback on many NFL teams. I think the Niners 100% play to his strengths and are a very big reason of why he is so successful. That being said, for a guy like Brock Purdy to go into a Niners team, like I said, that's in their Super Bowl era and win games is all you need. And I think that's all you need to look at is he wins games with the Niners. This is his first loss as a San Francisco 49er as the last pick in the draft. So again, for those who want to say that this is some huge revelation and Brock Purdy is not the guy, it's just completely wrong because I think regardless of how good the system is, and again, I'm not saying that the system is not good, and I think both of you can agree that it is, but the ability for him to step in as the third quarterback and be one of the most efficient guys and really a time manager, and you see that is 100% him, and then I agree. I think this is kind of just a hiccup, and I think they will be fine.
It's really interesting you bring it up. I think I was just thinking about this yesterday. I was talking to other people about it. Brock Purdy has, he went into the San Francisco 49ers team, and we believe, we kind of went through it a little bit. We believe that he would have never stepped on the field to this point in his career if he was on any of the other 31 NFL teams, because he was drafted as a third string quarterback in San Francisco. Then injury to Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo was traded away, and all of a sudden your third string Mr. Irrelevant quarterback from Iowa State, who was okay in college, is starting for the San Francisco 49ers, and he's undefeated. This is not, he would not have gotten the chance with other teams, and they're so glad they gave him this chance. I think with Brock Purdy, you said it, people have said that he is nothing without the system. He's not actually that good. He's just got McCaffrey, and he's got Kittle, and he's got Debo, and he's got Trent Williams, and he's got Brandon Ayuk.
Which is true.
I don't think it's true at all.
No. I'm not saying I agree with you, Charlie. I'm just saying it's true that yes, he has pieces, and it's a huge reason why he is good.
No, absolutely has pieces. This is the first time in his career, not only that he's lost, but that he's looked like a young quarterback.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy stepped in and from day one has been arguably the smartest quarterback in the NFL.
If Dylan
arguably the smartest. No. Not most accurate. Smart. You watch Brock Purdy play, his processing speed is unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, no.
No, I do agree.
His footwork is outstanding. This guy is able to move around in the pocket, manipulate the pocket in ways that veteran NFL quarterbacks like Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson at times, Josh Allen at times, just can't do. Brock Purdy will step up in the pocket. He'll deliver a strike when there's not necessarily something there. And that's something that a lot of quarterbacks over their NFL careers have to work on. And he came into the NFL with the ability to do that, which is such a skill that is, clearly undervalued as he was Mr. Irrelevant in the draft. But Brock Purdy, this is the first time in his career that he's looked like he wasn't able to do that. And that's because everything went wrong for the Niners in this game. Everything, they were playing against the number one defense in the NFL, and they lost their best two players. Everything went wrong, and he wasn't prepared. He's still a young quarterback. People just forget that. So I think that this is absolutely, totally just a shock game, and we will not see this often for the rest of the season. Maybe not at all for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think he's just it's the kind of thing where, and again, I'm not like, there are quarterbacks who are, again, the Josh Allens, the Mahomes, the freaky athletes, and then there are the Brock Purdys, the Jared Goffs, two quarterbacks who have the best record. That, again, I don't like throwing around the Tom Brady's, the guys that aren't super naturally athletic, but are really, again, have the traits that aren't as like valued, aren't as like,
you don't see them in the combine.
Exactly. Aren't as highlight worthy. That are super successful. And I think it's actually really funny. I think if you look at Brock Purdy, look at Jimmy Garoppolo, I think they're very similar. I think Purdy's just a little bit sharper, a little younger, and
Purdy's just
able
better.
To do it. Yeah, no, and
better
Purdy
anticipation.
Is better.
I think
Purdy is better, but let's not forget Garoppolo led him to a Super Bowl. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, young Garoppolo looked a lot like Purdy. Garoppolo's fallen off for the last couple of years, but
I think it's just sentiment again to the fact that Purdy was put in the perfect system. And again, I think we're repeating, everyone's saying this. So again, we're not saying anything people don't know, but let's talk about the Eagles. I think this one is a lot more interesting because a lot of Eagles fans right now are saying, look, Jalen Hurts right now has 7 interceptions, more than last year when he had 6. And again, you obviously know it's still not even halfway through the season. A lot of people are attributing it to their offensive coach. Again, you can talk about that or you don't have to. But when we look at the Eagles loss, Serge, I'll go to you first just because you are a Jets fan. I know you want to talk about the Jets, but what do you think about that game in terms of an Eagles standpoint?
Yeah, I think, again, not to bring it up bring it back to injuries, but I think this shows that Lane Johnson is easily definitely one of the most important players on that Eagles line, because when he went out, the Eagles' offensive line was dominated. Like the Jets obviously have a bunch of amazing pass rushers. I know that firsthand. We dominate the trenches, at least on the defensive side of the ball. But at the same time, the Eagles' offensive line just did not look. It looked a shell of itself, and I think Jalen Hurts oftentimes felt the pressure, and he didn't really. Sometimes he did well escaping the pressure and making a good play. Other times he would force a bad throw. It was just, but overall, they definitely looked uncharacteristically. At least on the offense side of the ball, they didn't really have the same time to throw that they usually had, and we saw obviously AJ Brown had a great game, but Devontae Smith a few key drop passes didn't play well. I know obviously Eagles fans have blamed a lot of their offensive struggles on Brian Johnson, but really at the end of the day, I don't
players got
think
to execute, right?
players got to execute, because there were a lot of plays where Jalen Hurts didn't execute, where Devontae Smith didn't execute. They talked about how they need to run the ball more, but they only averaged 3.6 yards per carry against the Jets run defense that isn't particularly great this year, at least so far. So it was really just a very poorly executed game by the Eagles, but also a testament to the Jets defense, especially that was down Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, and Brandon Eccles, who was their third outside corner. So we're going with Bryce Hall and Craig James, who really stepped up. And definitely, I know AJ Brown had a big game, but other than that, they were able to
picked off Hurts 3 times. I mean,
exactly. They were able to nullify them 0 points in the second half. So it was a great performance from the Jets defense. And the Eagles, all year they've looked really sloppy. So I think that is definitely something to be concerned. I've always said that I'm not truly concerned because they're so talented. I think eventually they're going to figure it out, but they've got to figure it out sooner rather than later, especially with this gauntlet of the schedule they have next. I don't know exactly, but I know they play Miami next. I know they have the Chiefs on that schedule. They have the Cowboys twice. They have the Niners. They have, I'm sure there's still a few, the Seahawks
Giants,
as well.
trap games.
Of course, trap game. I mean, maybe honestly, who knows with the Bills?
Game.
But yeah, anyways, but yeah, very, very disappointing performance, especially against the Jets defense that was very banged up. But yeah, that's all
I just want to say this, and this is not taking anything away from the Jets. That being said, the Eagles had 4 turnovers and were a field goal away from winning the game. So it's not like this was some huge, and Serge, I would slightly disagree. I don't think the Eagles have been sloppy. I just don't think they're playing to the level they can, and they're still
no, but that's what
games.
I mean. I think they haven't
I don't think it's necessarily they need to figure it out. It's just they need to turn it up a little bit.
Yeah, no,
I don't think they don't have some stuff
I mean.
figured out. They have stuff, again, and you might have worded that wrong, but they have stuff figured out. I think for them, it's just, again, like I said, 4 turnovers, field goal away from winning the game. Obviously, again, and that's again not taking anything away from the Jets. Banged up defense. Obviously, the Jets. Once Aaron Rodgers went out, the Jets were like, okay, they're gonna have a top 5 pick. Everyone lost faith in the Jets, and I think they still played a great game. Zach Wilson had, again, that great throw, that Garrett Wilson catch was phenomenal.
Yep.
But I will say, I think the Eagles will be fine. It's just kind of a matter of turn it up a little bit.
I think what I'm very curious about is because I think all season long the Eagles have played a pretty light schedule. I don't think have they played anyone.
This was the easiest part of their schedule. They haven't played anyone over 500.
Played a light schedule, and every game they've played to the level of their competition, which means they played down to their competition. So I'm curious when they play kind of now some of the more elite teams like Miami, like San Francisco, even Dallas. I would still say they're a pretty good team. Will they play up to the competition? Will they play to the level that we expected the Eagles that went to the Super Bowl last year? So that's definitely a question that has to be answered, because if they continue to play to the level that they've played to this point in the season, again, it's a crazy because the Eagles are still 5-1, but we know that they've played not great, and that's also a lot.
If they were playing the way they played last year, they'd be 6-0 with a plus 300 point differential.
Exactly.
I mean, this would be not even close.
No,
they've played 6 really bad teams so far.
Yeah.
No. I wouldn't say really bad, but definitely
they've played the 6 easiest teams that they'll play all year, pretty much. But I think this Eagles performance, this all goes back a little bit to what I said towards the beginning of the season. I don't know if you guys remember when I called Jalen Hurts one of the more overrated quarterbacks in the NFL. Yeah. I think this game goes to show not that Jalen Hurts is bad. I'm not by any means saying that Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback. I don't want to get clips saying Jalen Hurts is bad because he's not. Obviously, that will now get clipped because I just said quite literally Jalen Hurts is bad, that I don't want to get clipped like that. But I think that this game showed that the offense is not good because of Jalen Hurts. This team does not work through Jalen Hurts. This team works like this. I think the two clear best offensive players on the Philadelphia Eagles are AJ Brown and Lane Johnson. I think
Yep.
Lane Johnson is possibly the best tackle in the NFL right now because he's in, the Eagles win. He's out, the Eagles lose.
I would
It's
argue for Penei Sewell, but yeah,
but
either
it's
him or Lane
he's
Johnson.
easily a top 3 tackle in the
Mhm.
NFL. And
Yep.
AJ Brown is easily a top 3 to 5 receiver in the NFL right now.
Yeah, he had
He's
a
been
huge game.
really strong for the last 4 or 5 weeks. He had a slow start to the season, but he's really picked it up. I think this Eagles offense, when it ticks, it's clockwork. It's easy. Everything just moves exactly how they want it to. But then one injury like Lane Johnson going down and they lose to the Jets.
Yep.
And again, there's nothing to discredit the Jets. I actually think the Jets have done spectacularly well this year. They held the Chiefs and Mahomes to, I mean, Zach Wilson has outplayed Mahomes, Allen, and Jalen Hurts in
Mhm.
3 games. They've beat the Bills. They beat the Eagles. They almost beat the Chiefs. This is a really interesting Jets team.
Yep. That's
It's
what I would say.
it's not good, it's not bad, but they can be good and they can be bad. So you just never know what you're going to get. And I don't know that we actually saw a very good Jets the other day or yesterday, but we saw a really poor Eagles, and the Jets, as mediocre as they are, capitalized on that brilliantly and held the Eagles to 14 points.
Mhm.
And it was just a matter of outscoring a low scoring team, which is, not that hard to do. So I really just think that the Eagles are, to relate it back a little bit to the Niners in this topic, the Eagles are, for me, in a much more worrying situation than the 49ers by a
Yeah,
lot.
I again, Charlie, I think you're known for your takes, and that Jalen Hurts, when I was trying to find disagreement there, I think I kind of do agree with it. I think there may be some more important pieces there. But again,
Like that
I think
Prescott.
I think for the Jets, and sir, you should be super excited. I mean,
No,
imagine
yeah.
if you guys had Aaron
Absolutely.
Rodgers. You guys would be a really good team.
I
And
mean,
again, this
who?
is no shade towards Zach Wilson because I think he's been fantastic.
Mm.
But I think if you had, again, that established elite level guy like Rodgers, you guys could be undefeated right now.
I
You
would
know what's
say
interesting?
I think we'd be at least 4-2. We'd beat New England. I think
I think you would have beaten
Chiefs
the
Chiefs
Chiefs.
possibly just
Yeah.
because Zach Wilson played so well that game that how much I
Yeah,
mean
how much more?
even
But again, Serge, it's just that one. Like, it's just that.
no, that is
Again, this is
true.
all
Four
hypothetical.
and two
But I
or
think
5-1, and Dallas we got dominated. So
But I actually think it's really interesting. I'm not saying this is a definitive statement. I don't know that the Jets would actually be much better with Rodgers on the field right now. I think
which I think is a
offensively,
fair statement. Actually,
I
think that's
think
a fair statement.
offensively, obviously Rodgers is a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. There's
Mhm.
no debate. But the
Mhm.
Jets have changed their game plan with Zach Wilson on the field as opposed to Aaron Rodgers, and their game plan right now is working. They're
Mhm.
3-3 with wins over the Bills and Eagles and an almost win over the Chiefs. I know I said that before, but
Yep.
they're playing at times really, really good football. And Aaron Rodgers and the Packers didn't even make the playoffs last year. So I know the Jets team is better than the Packers team other than Rodgers, but I just don't know that record wise, the Jets would actually be much better off with Rodgers this year.
What I would say to that, I think that all along, I think obviously Aaron Rodgers was obviously the headline acquisition, but this Jets team was always a run first team. They have a great
Yeah.
run blockers across the line. This was always gonna be a run first team, but the difference is Rodgers is a quarterback that sees the
He
field
doesn't want to run
very
the ball.
well. He's exactly smart with the ball. He's gonna find the open guy. He's not afraid to take a chance. And against New England, that's literally why we lost. So I don't think we would have lost any of the games, obviously, that if we subbed Rodgers for Zach Wilson. But I think we subbed Wilson for Rodgers against New England, we would have won that game. Chiefs again, 50-50. I'm not really sure. And then Cowboys, we got dominated that game. Rodgers would have gotten killed. But I think either way, I will say, I don't have too much hope, but there are a lot of reports that are going along that somehow maybe he can make a miraculous
I
recovery.
know, he's
I've
walking
been seeing
already.
that he's like
Like,
throwing the football
bro,
on the
yeah,
sideline. Like,
I'm
what is
like,
he doing? He's got to be on so many drugs right now.
no,
It's crazy.
so many. I mean, I don't know.
Like,
It's this new doc. All I keep hearing is this new doctor who has like this speed bridge technique. I don't even know. But if he returned this season, that would be probably one of the most incredible
I mean, Akers
recoveries of
returned
all
from
time.
a torn Achilles in the same.
That is
in the
true, and
same
he
year.
is a running back, and he recovered.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
obviously,
bro, Rodgers is
not
a
gonna put.
38-year-old quarterback, so
That's
it's
true.
like
It's
Yeah.
definitely a situation to monitor. But if the Jets are still alive and it's late in the season, you never know. That's all
if
I'm
the
gonna
Jets are
say.
still alive, do you even bring in Aaron Rodgers? coming off of an
I think you
injury.
do. It's
Yeah, you have
Aaron
to.
Rodgers. I think you got to,
I think
especially
it's a
with the
situational. I almost might play two quarterbacks, like in a weird way. Not on the field at the
going
same
like
time.
kind of
Just
like
like
college.
Rodgers is coming off of an injury, and if Zach Wilson leads the Jets to the playoffs, like, are you really going to replace him
Yeah, I mean,
in the
let it ride,
playoffs?
maybe.
Yeah, I
Like,
think just this. I think the only thing is that the ceiling with Rodgers is this
A
year
Super
is
Bowl.
exponentially higher than the ceiling with Zach
well, but
Wilson.
I
So
don't know that it is anymore due to the injury.
I don't know. He's never been someone that's really, at least in the past few years, he hasn't really relied on his like kind
Running.
of his like mobility, at least like going
Yeah,
outside the pocket. So
no,
I
that's true.
think I'm not sure. Anyway, it's still very likely that he won't come back, but
Yeah.
just that it's a possibility to me is crazy. But
Mhm.
that's what I'd say anyway. For the going back to the Eagles, I think this is a team that definitely needs to figure it out fast. But as long as they're in the playoffs, I think they stack up well with any team. But they do need to figure it out. Coaching needs to figure it out. Obviously, players need to figure it out. Hurts needs to figure it out. But definitely an interesting NFC.
Yeah. Speaking of the NFC, go to some dark horses. The Detroit Lions, obviously 5-1 now. Jared Goff at the helm. I mean, I'll never forget. I think all of us were hanging out when Stafford was traded to the Rams.
Oh yeah.
Man,
Yep.
poor Goff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he looks good, and again, I think, I mean, all of us never really hated Goff on the Lions. I think we all were like, he should give him a chance, and obviously he's taking that very well. I said it. Jameson Williams adds another dimension. I actually didn't say it on this. I said it on a radio show at where the college I'm at. I said Jameson Williams adds a complete dimension to this offense, and we saw that they haven't had a pure vertical threat kind of guy, and I think Jameson Williams, obviously we saw that bomb touchdown. And again, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw him. He was thrown. He was like
Great
looking
catch.
around, and then
Great
Great
like
catch.
catch.
the
Great
tracking was
concentration.
incredible. So again, I mean, another piece of that offense. Serge, like you said, you kind of the underrated guys. Penei Sewell, fantastic. We knew how good he was coming out of college. I love to see Penei Sewell doing well, but
Yep.
again, I mean, the Detroit Lions, I just love their story because I think a part of the reason why they're so good is, yes, they have good players, but when you match them up against the Eagles win most of those battles. When you match
I
them up
wouldn't
against
even
the
say so,
Niners,
honestly.
but
I think
I overall they do. Defensive line, yes. Secondary, yes. Quarterback, yes. Running backs, I guess you can kind of match up.
secondary of the Eagles haven't been as good, but I do
Honestly,
agree.
you look at
Obviously,
personnel,
defensive
yeah.
line.
Offensive line, I think just the two best in the league.
Yep.
I actually think the Lions are probably the best O-line in the league. But again, that shows. Again, I think it's kind of a theme of how important the O-line is here. Like the trenches are really everything. But again, back to kind of what we're talking about. When we look at the Lions, do we think that they are a Super Bowl contending team?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of mad at myself because Charlie, you'll remember this. I said preseason, like way before the season started.
You
that
said
I had
last spring. Like, this
last
isn't even
spring.
preseason. We're talking before the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Surge comes up to me.
I said like Lions, Bengals, and obviously the Bengals. Let's not talk about
Wow,
that.
Serge.
But I said the Lions would go to the Super Bowl,
And then I brought it up at some point, and he goes, "No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that."
No, I did. I said that, but I said I changed my pick. I changed it to the Eagles. I switched it up a bit, and now I was right the first time. But my sentiment, I never really changed my opinion on the Lions. More that I was just too nervous to stick with the pick. But it's really like this team is just like on all levels. It's a very complete team with like I don't really know if you can actually pinpoint a weakness with the Lions because like last year, obviously they had the defense, which was not that great, but the offense was always scoring points. This year, it's a team that can win in both ways. We saw
I think where people will
against
try and pin their problem is Goff, and he's been to a Super Bowl.
yeah, exactly. I think like if your problem, which isn't a problem, but like if your one question is Jared Goff, who literally led a team to the Super Bowl, that's a pretty good, not even a problem. Again, I'm not even gonna say problem, but a good question mark to have. But their
I think
offense has been
it's like maybe
yeah.
linebacking.
No, not linebacker because they have Malcolm Rodriguez, Jack Campbell's had a great rookie year, Alex Anzalone.
Anzalone.
They're strong.
Shout out to Charlie. Charlie called the Jack Campbell. I
Yeah.
kind of
Beast.
yeah, beast.
They've they're strong. Defensive line, obviously, they have Aiden Hutchinson, who's been one of the best defensive players in the league this year. Linebacking, they've been good. Secondary, I know they had the Emmanuel Mosley injury, but they've still stepped up. Guys like Cam Sutton, Brian Branch, they've stepped up. They've had
Brian Branch is hurt too.
Kirby Joseph, who's one of the best
Kirby
safeties in the
Joseph.
league.
I don't know how I forgot him, but
yeah,
it's like it's a very complete team at all three levels, and their defense has stepped up. Obviously, last week against the Bucks, obviously week 1 against the Chiefs. Their only really bad game was against the Seahawks, who also have a very good offense. So I don't think that's really an
I
indication of the
think the
Lions.
next step for the Lions and the last thing that they need to be able to do is getting the Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery rotation
Mhm.
set and finding out
I
where
don't think
they
that's true.
complement each other.
David Montgomery's been one of the best running backs in the league this year. I don't
Although he
think
is
Jameer
hurt
Gibbs needs
now. I don't
now
know.
now that Montgomery's hurt, it's a really, really
Now it
big
is
Yeah,
concern
that's
because
true.
he's
Yeah.
been arguably their best offense. Actually, I don't even think arguably. I think he's been their best offensive player this season. Maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's been great. Sam Laporta.
Sam
Sam
Um,
Laporta's been
Laporta.
fantastic.
Remember when
I
we were
think
dogging on them for taking him over
Oh
Mayer?
man,
That
Yeah.
was
looks
so
great.
sick.
I mean, I drafted him in my fantasy leagues. I was like,
Mhm.
that's the guy, and he's been fantastic.
I was
For me, the problem with the Lions is just I. Do you ever get that feeling like there can be a team that's 8-0, but you're like, I just don't think they're that good, or there can be a
Yeah.
team that's 0-8, and you're just like, I feel like they're so much better than that. Like you get that feeling sometimes. I don't think this Lions team is that good. Um, they're good.
mm,
As far as Super Bowl contenders go, I don't think they are. Considering this is an NFC with the Eagles and the 49ers in it. Um, but I think that I I I think the Lions for me are unproven. They beat the Chiefs in week 1, and that was I have to chalk that up to a fluke. The Chiefs haven't been quite as good this year, and that game in particular, they were horrendous. And then after that, they lost to the Seahawks, beat Desmond Ritter led Falcons,
I
and
mean, the
Desmond
Falcons
Ritter's
have
never won a
been.
freaking away game.
That is true. That's true.
They beat the Packers, who Jordan Love is their quarterback, and he's looked all right. Then they beat the 0-6 Panthers and the Baker Mayfield led Buccaneers.
Well, the
And
Bucks have been good this year.
The Bucks
To
have
be
been
the
good.
Bucks have
And
been
away.
good, but they also haven't played anyone very good. So it's an interesting. The Lions have played a weirdly easy schedule to the point where I don't think they've had to look that good to be 5-1. I think it's been the same for the Eagles. They haven't looked that good, but they're 5-1. The 49ers have looked amazing and they're 5-1. But I think this Lions team is I get this weird gut feeling that if you match them up against any team that before the season you said was better than them, Eagles, 49ers, Chiefs, Bills, Dolphins, Bengals, when they're at full strength, they just don't stand a chance yet. They're just not quite there.
I will disagree, and I think it's for one main reason. It's because in the trenches, the Lions will
Are
beat most
unstoppable.
teams,
Yeah.
especially on the offensive side of the ball. I
They're
think
great in the trenches.
a good offensive line gives you a chance against anyone. And the
If
Lions,
if
like
you
we
can't
said,
get to the quarterback, you can't
yeah, Jared
contend.
Goff, he has time to throw. Now he obviously has Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now he has Sam Laporta. Now he has Jamison Williams, who I think might start to kind of continue to gain steam as the year goes along. And I think I know these aren't elite pieces, but guys like Josh Reynolds have stepped up. Khalif Raymond has stepped up in this offense. I think there's definitely, but again, it mainly comes down to the strength that is the offensive line that gives Goff in this offense so much time to work. Again, Montgomery, he's out for a little bit, but he'll be back eventually. I think they've been better than the Eagles to this point. To
Yeah,
this point
agreed.
season, they have. So for that reason, I don't think they are the team that I think they've played the level of a 5-1 team. I think they deserve their record. I don't think they're like
Considering the teams they've played against, yes, I agree.
no, yeah, yeah. But I think I understand the Chiefs obviously weren't the same Chiefs that they are now. Oh, even now they haven't been that great, but they're still the Kansas City Chiefs. They're still defending champions, and they went into Arrowhead and beat them. I still think that's a huge win. I think it's hard to fully discredit that. And then again, like I said, beating the Bucks, who have been good this year, is a great win. Again, lost to the Seahawks, but that was also a very close game. I think they've definitely. I think they are a contender in the NFC because I think, like I said, obviously, they don't have the same big names or stars that the Eagles or the Niners have, but they're a complete team. They're a team like that. I just don't really see many flaws. Like I think they've really completed their roster. and they have obviously an elite offense, and now they have a defense that really, if their offense isn't on their game, that they can still kind of win kind of a gritty, low scoring game. Like the Bucks, they won, was it 17-6 or 24-6?
26.
Okay, so but either way, they can win high scoring or low scoring. They can win shootouts or like grudge matches. I think that's a characteristic of a winning team. And I think they're kind of, especially, I know I've just talked about how I think the Eagles and the Niners are obviously, I think they're still going to figure it out and be elite teams. They've shown that they're beatable. And I think Detroit are the team that.
So have the Lions.
No, the Lions are beatable too. I agree. I'm not saying the Lions are like unbeatable and unbeatable.
There's no
force, but I
unbeatable
think
team this year.
exactly, and I think that's the main reason. I think if the Lions have looked this good and the Eagles and the Niners have proven that they are beatable, I think they
I
are
don't
contenders.
like. I just have to disagree. Like I agree that the Lions have looked just as beatable or as unbeatable, I guess, as the Eagles. But I think that the Niners have looked unbeatable all year long. They only lost because of injuries.
No, I know. Again, this isn't.
They're unbeatable.
I'm not taking anything away from the Niners, but I just still think that there is. I still think that hey, it's the NFL any given Sunday, and it's not like the Lions are, and the Lions again, they're 5-1. So I think
this year has very much proven that any given Sunday, I think it's a lot more.
No, this year's definitely been.
Yeah, but here's what I'll say just to kind of end it out. We know the Eagles and the Niners can defensively shut out a team, but they can also go in a shootout. I think the Lions can do that as well. I think the Lions can shoot out, and I think the Lions can also defensively shut down.
Yep.
Like Charlie, you're telling me that if the Lion, you're telling me that they're. I guess this might not make sense. This might be a very easy answer for you. You're telling me that the Lions don't stand a chance against the Niners and Eagles, or you're telling me that they just don't have it?
Like what do you mean? Like
I know if the Lions play the Eagles in the playoffs, are you saying it won't be a close game?
Not that
or
it
the Niners.
won't be a close game. I just don't think that, I don't think that the Lions have what it takes quite yet to compete for the NFC crown. I just don't think they're as good as the Niners or the Eagles this year. Roster-wise, talent-wise, I just don't think they're as good. I could be wrong, but me personally, that's my opinion.
All right. Well, we can move on. Speaking of contenders, we're going to switch over to the AFC. Chiefs and Bills, obviously both wins. Me and Charlie as Giants fans are very cognizant of how BS of a win that was, and the Giants should have got a holding call again on Darren Waller, and we should have gotten at least another chance. That being said, we are the Giants, so we probably wouldn't have scored again, but at least we can hold the idea that we would have gotten another opportunity. Again, when you look at the AFC, obviously the Dolphins are there, and then you have the Bills and Chiefs. When you look at these two wins, which we have described in our show notes as shaky wins, how does this, what do you think about those wins and how it kind of sets them up, going into the rest of the regular season?
Yeah. I mean, it's been definitely kind of, I think for both teams, it's been like kind of very inconsistent performances. Like it hasn't been like the Eagles where every game has kind of been like close down to the wire, even though they should be kind of blowing them out. It's more like some games they look like, oh, this is the Chiefs, or oh, this is the Bills. These are clearly the best teams in the AFC. And other times it's like this team has a lot of problems and they're not going anywhere in the playoffs. So I feel like it's kind of a similar theme where it's Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, and these guys are going to turn it up come playoff time. But it also definitely looks like there are a lot of kind of flaws to these teams. I think Chiefs, namely, again, still not really having that receiver one. And when Kelsey is like locked up, then there isn't really, I mean, maybe Rashee Rice has kind of been turning up the past few weeks, but at the same time, can you really trust him in big moments? Like, especially come
But sir,
December?
just the Chiefs. The playoffs will come and there will be some random wide receiver 3 that just like explodes.
No,
like Marquez.
Also, can I point out that Travis Kelsey does not get locked up?
He doesn't, but like if you like specifically go and try and take him away.
Kelsey had 124 yards this week.
No, that's true. Obviously it's Kelsey. He's never going to get locked up, but I'm talking about when you face a good defense, like even like I will say like they faced the Jets and Kelsey didn't have his best game. Like again, it was still like he had like 60 yards, so it was still a good game. But can the Chiefs, do they have someone else that they can really count on? That's the main thing.
That's been the discussion all year. I actually don't love this topic on the list. The Bills, super shaky game. The Giants,
Mm.
by all means, should have won that game if they had taken 3 at the end of the first half and then 3 at the end of the second half. They would have won the game. But I don't think the Chiefs were actually that shaky this week. I only watched a little bit of that game, but I think they were out to 19-0.
I think it was
They
16-0, and then the
they
Broncos
they
had
never
like a
lose to the Broncos. The Chiefs did not look bad. They just sort of took their foot off the gas, which is kind of weird.
mm,
Um,
mm,
it was a 19-8 win, and the Broncos, I think, scored a pretty garbage time touchdown because they went for two. So I don't think that the Chiefs actually looked very shaky. They've looked shaky this season, but I don't think this week was a big problem for me.
I think
I
really
agree with
what I'm
Charlie.
talking about, what I think is that obviously the Chiefs defense has actually been very good this year. It's probably one of the best they've had in a long time. It's more the Chiefs offense that I'm just like kind of just a bit confused about, because the Broncos defense obviously has been good in previous years, but this year it has been one of the worst units in the NFL. And the Chiefs offense was not really that great, didn't even put up 20 points. So it is, and it has been also a theme where we saw that against the Jaguars, they didn't play that great. Against the Jets, they didn't play that great. Against the Lions, they didn't play that great. And now against the Broncos, they didn't play that great. And when I say didn't play that great, I mean they didn't score more than 24 points, which obviously for most teams, they don't average 24 points. But at the same time, the Chiefs we're accustomed to this Chiefs being always one of the high flying units who always score like 28 points or more every single game. So I think again, it's the Chiefs, and I know they've been a bit inconsistent with the offense. I think they'll be okay, but I think it's something worth noting. I think considering that we don't see it too often where they struggle kind of to consistently put up gaudy numbers like they have this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think again, like Charlie said, I think for the Chiefs, at least I was catching the end of the game, and it seemed like kind of like Charlie said, just the pedal was off a little bit, which again is very unnormal for the Chiefs. But I think for the Bills, it was the Bills. It's just I think it 100% has to do with the fact that we have Brian Dable, so I think Dable understands the Bills a lot more. I think that 100% is a reason for it. That being said, I think again Tyrod Taylor, a guy who has been on the Bills, kind of knows their defensive scheme. So again, I think it was a combination of that. Um, I'm not too worried about the Bills, but I still think it's the kind of thing where I think the Chiefs still have the edge, and I'm still waiting for the Bills to get that edge over Kansas City. But again, like you said, the AFC just doesn't look as good. If I were to predict, I would put a lot of money on an NFC team winning a Super Bowl this year. I think it's a lot more likely to happen, but I wouldn't be too worried again if I was a Chiefs or Bills. I don't think there was a single contender in either division this week that really showed a ton of flaws where it's super concerning. I think it's kind of just, teams have bad games, and it shows how open the NFL this
Yeah,
year is, and it
No, I
shows
agree.
that
I
on any
agree.
given Sunday, I think again, which I love. Like we would much rather the NFL be like that, where it turns into again, not to kind of say, but like the Premier League in England, like how it can be just vastly different year to year. So
Mhm.
again, I think that's what makes good sport. So I'm happy
yeah.
with kind of
I
how it's
think I
going.
have to agree with you. I think this was not a super concerning loss not a super concerning performance for the Bills, Chiefs, Eagles, or Niners this week because, like you said, all teams have bad games. It was just a coincidence, I think, that they all happened on the same week this year. They all sort of just fell to not great to mediocre teams, and it just happened on the same week. But I said it a couple weeks ago where I said I don't think Josh Allen is that good compared to and I stated my reason for that thinking is he is a very inconsistent quarterback. We saw bad Josh Allen yesterday. We did
Mhm.
not see Josh Allen play well.
Until the fourth quarter.
He only threw for 169 yards, two touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and a pick. Um, Josh Allen didn't look good last night. Even though they scored twice in the fourth quarter, the Giants still should have won that game. But the Bills didn't put up points until the fourth quarter. So
Mhm.
this is just, it depends on what Josh Allen we see. And the argument last week was Josh Allen versus Tua. Tua has been putting out numbers week in, week out, and Josh Allen, any given week, could put up 5 touchdowns, but could also put up 3 picks or less than 200 yards. And that's the difference for the two quarterbacks for me. But I think the Giants um, caught him on a bad day. That was definitely part of it.
Mhm.
If it's an inconsistent quarterback, you got to get lucky sometimes. And the Giants caught him on a bad day. They didn't score for 3 quarters, but I think that also the game plan for the Giants going into this one was really, really good. Um,
Yeah,
for the
100%.
first time all season, they've actually looked like shades of last season. Saquon was coming off of an injury. He did not look great until the fourth quarter.
Yeah, those
Tyrod
two big
Taylor was
runs.
playing quarterback, and we saw Jalen Hyatt start to play this year.
Yep.
Just this week, and Jalen Hyatt looked really, really good. Darren Waller made some really big catches. Should have made one last one, but was held. And Justin Pugh was fantastic for the Giants, the best O lineman we've had all year. And as he said, straight off the couch. If you guys were watching at the beginning of the game when they introduced the offenses,
Yeah.
the Giants' offensive line, I could rattle off the numbers for you. Left tackle was Josh Azudu, ranked 39 out of 40 by PFF. Justin Pugh at left guard does not have a ranking because he has not played a snap all year. At center, Ben Bredesen is not a center, does not have a center ranking. At right guard, Mark Lewinsky has not played much this year, does not have a ranking yet. And at right tackle, Evan Neal, ranked 34 out of 34 for right tackles in the NFL. It does not, I repeat, does not get worse than that. It can't. Put Eric Flowers on that offensive line, and it's still not worse. And that guy was freaking terrible. But I think that the Giants went into this game finally, and I said to my parents, and when I was home last weekend, start this week over Daniel Jones, even if Daniel Jones was healthy. And I think I was right because Tyrod Taylor is much more suited to be running around, running away from defenders, just playing that quick game. That Daniel Jones, while he's fast, is not the most elusive in the pocket. Tyrod Taylor brought that today. He didn't really miss much on his, or brought that yesterday. Didn't miss much on his throws. He missed one or two to Waller. But I think the Giants went into this one finally with a good game plan. I know they didn't even score a touchdown, but I think the Giants looked a whole lot better than the Bills last night.
Yeah. All right. We'll speak about this, and we always do recaps each episode. We're going to talk about here kind of a real podcast topic, if you will. Who do we think is going to get Caleb Williams? It's the question that's there. We're starting to get to kind of draft season in terms of just, mock draft starting to kind of come up. But, and actually, I want to pose a really interesting topic to you guys. And again, this was another show that I was on this past week. One of the hosts was talking about how Caleb Williams has a ton of leverage, and what he should do is leverage himself to get put on the best NFL team he can instead of getting picked by the Bears or by whichever team gets him and going to a poor situation. Instead, he should do kind of an Eli Manning type where he goes to the best situation where he can win a ton of Super Bowls where they already have weapons and then stay in college one more year. He can make a ton of money. He has a huge NIL valuation. I want you guys to touch on that and kind of just who you think will get Caleb Williams, because I think he has options, whereas a lot of these guys don't.
I think the problem with that is that no matter what, he's going to be the first overall pick. So no matter what, you're going to be going to a quote unquote bad situation. So I think no matter what, I think the only reason why I'd really see him sitting is if he really has a problem with the ownership and he thinks just the organization as a whole is totally dysfunctional. Like maybe like for reference, like Dan Snyder, Washington Commanders, that bad. But I think otherwise he's going to declare for the draft. He'll get picked by whoever has the first pick this year. And if I had to guess, really tough right now, I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos because I think this team just seems to have less and less to really less and less really good things like that. I don't see what happens. I think Russ had a good start to the year, has kind of regressed. And I think Sean Payton, he's already someone who's harped on Caleb Williams a lot, how you're going to see a lot of teams really kind of go to the race to the bottom for him. And I think right now with Denver, you can already tell they're basically out of the playoff race. I feel like they're going to be the team that gets him because I think, again, that defense is just really, really bad. And I think even though New England also have a really bad offense, I think a good defense can keep you in a lot of games. And I think New England will find a way. They'll probably beat the Jets again just because they just don't lose to the Jets. They'll probably
New
win.
England won't have the number one overall pick.
I don't think they'll have the. I
think it's going to be the Panthers.
They could.
I think the Panthers are going to have the first overall pick.
The
Panthers have not won a game. May I remind you?
The Panthers have. I agree. I just think I think with the Panthers, Bryce Young, I think we saw a little bit of improvement going into with that Dolphins game. I think you're going to continue to see improvement. Frank Reich no longer is going to be calling plays, which I think is going to. I mean, it can't get worse than it has been for Carolina in terms of calling plays. So I think it's gonna be a bit of a momentum boost for them. I think they'll win a few games again. I think the NFC is definitely much more. The NFC South in particular isn't really a great division, so I think they'll be able to find a few wins there.
I don't think
So
they will. And I don't think they will. And I don't think that Bryce Young is good. Like, no, there are the quarterbacks that right now that I would keep over. If I had the first overall pick and I had this quarterback, I wouldn't take Caleb Williams. Joe Burrow, Mahomes, Josh Allen. I think that's it.
No, you're wrong. No, it's wrong.
I think that's
I'm
it.
not. I'm not. If I'm the Panthers, I'm not getting rid of Bryce Young for this
Oh,
guy.
I would do that in a second. I would do that in a second because you can leverage
No,
Bryce Young for picks to a team, and Caleb Williams
you
is
can
miles
leverage
better.
Caleb Williams for picks.
Yeah, but Caleb Williams is a lot better. Caleb Williams, if he continues how he's playing, it will be the best quarterback to ever come out.
I'd argue that's not quite true. I don't know how closely you follow college football, but Caleb Williams has not looked great this year. Especially the last couple weeks. He threw 3 interceptions this week against Notre Dame.
I know.
Two straight weeks with just 1 touchdown pass. They only beat Arizona, an unranked Arizona, 43-41 in
that's more
triple
because their
overtime.
defense is awful.
And
though,
then lost to Notre Dame, and Caleb threw 3 picks. I'm not saying Caleb Williams is bad. Caleb Williams is going to be the number 1 overall pick come this April. But my question is just my thought process is I have no idea where he's going to end up. Because first off, I don't know who's going to end up with the number 1 overall pick because we have 7 teams right now, 6 teams with 1 or fewer wins. The Panthers aren't going to draft him. Like straight up, I don't think the Panthers will draft him.
I'm not saying they won't, but
your
I just think that
your opinion is different. I think the Panthers will not draft him. I think the Giants will not draft him. I think the Patriots won't end up with the first overall pick. I think the Broncos will not end up with the first overall pick. I think the Bears won't draft them. I mean, I think the Bears might, but I don't think they'll end up with the first overall pick either. And I think that the only team that leaves for me is the Arizona Cardinals. I think for me, the most likely landing spot in April is Arizona. And I think that's because they're the one of the 6 teams right now that has 1 win that doesn't really have the ability to turn it around. We're seeing improvement from Bryce Young. We're seeing improvement from the Giants. It's Bill Belichick and the Patriots. We're seeing improvement from Justin Fields over a couple weeks. We're seeing Russell Wilson sometimes can play okay. I don't think the Cardinals have what it takes.
I'm not saying that these teams don't have improvement. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that Caleb Williams is a 10-win multiple Super Bowls quarterback. If he has
that's a tough,
but so could Bryce Young
to live up to.
so could that's
the case with any quarterback. I think the expectations. That's too high of an expectation for Caleb Williams, and I think he's a great quarterback. I wouldn't say he's a generational prospect like some are saying, but he's definitely one of the.
How can you not say that?
I think he's the best quarterback to come out of college since. Well, it's hard because we've had some really great college quarterbacks, but Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Is that technically
Trevor Lawrence was
that's not once in a generation?
I don't think so. I think he's
okay,
he's better than Lawrence.
But are you saying we only have 1 generational quarterback in the NFL right now?
I mean, isn't that like I thought the idea of generational
is Joe Burrow not
that
generational?
You only see
Joe Burrow is not generational.
I thought the idea of generational is that like they come once in a generation. I mean, maybe I take it as
but I think it's a term used very loosely, and if we're looking at,
he's definitely an elite quarterback prospect, and he's definitely one of the best. He's definitely one of the best in the last 10,
but if we're looking at them as college quarterbacks, then Joe Burrow is absolutely generational, and Trevor Lawrence is absolutely in that category because
as a college quarterback,
but as a college quarterback, were unbelievable.
I agree.
Burrow was unbelievable for like a year,
right? But most quarterbacks only get 1 or 2 years.
I don't throw that around lightly. 2 elite years is a lot. 1 elite year, like most people have. That's what most first round picks have. That's what most first round picks have. Lawrence had 2 elite years. Caleb Williams, he had the 3 picks. He is still very much a Heisman favorite.
No, I'm not saying he's not elite. Year. It's just but I don't think that.
I think to say he's not generational.
Joe Burrow had 1 elite year. Joe Burrow had 1 elite year, but Joe Burrow's elite year was better than everybody else's elite years. So it's a very as far as college quarterbacks go, I don't think Caleb is that much better, or if at all better. As far as NFL potential goes, he's definitely up there. He's going to be the number 1 overall pick. That's what that means. I just don't even know where he's going to go, because I don't think that the teams that are at the bottom right now are really in a fantastic spot to grab him. I was thinking about it last night with the Giants. When you look at it straight up, Kian, it's easy. Would you rather have Daniel Jones? Would you rather have Caleb Williams? It's Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
it's easy.
Not even a.
For me, though, I would rather have Daniel Jones and use my number 1 overall pick on an offensive lineman or Marvin Harrison.
Nah. I think
because we saw flashes from Daniel Jones last year.
That's just bad business, though. That's just bad business.
I would rather trade down a couple spots and grab Marvin Harrison. Like, that's just what it is.
I think
trade down a couple spots.
Yeah, I would not take Caleb Williams at 1.
No, elite especially for the Giants, elite quarterback play moves the needle way too much that I feel like you can't pass up on him, especially when your quarterback is Daniel Jones, who isn't awful per se, but he's definitely not a quarterback.
I mean, Charlie, we can't confidently say he's part of the answer, so that for me immediately allows me to take Caleb Williams over.
But I think Brian Daboll can confidently say he's part of the answer because he handed him $160 million last offseason. So it's I don't know. He's not ready to. Daboll and Shane are not ready to move on from Jones, so I'm not ready to move on from Jones.
I actually see
that's just how it
point of view, but I think that's a bad decision. I think that would be a bad decision.
Bad decision or not, like it's a risk reward situation. Like it could turn out great because Marvin Harrison could be one of the best receivers in NFL history.
He could, but does that move the needle as much as having a top 5 quarterback in the NFL like Caleb Williams?
But I think that Caleb Williams, the ceiling to floor, as we're seeing with Bryce Young right now, is a lot different than Marvin Harrison's ceiling. Because Caleb Williams can come into the NFL and be like Zach Wilson or be like Trey Lance. He's better than nothing. They're very low. There's no doubt.
There's always a chance.
But it's always so much more of a chance for quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true.
That's all.
But I just think it's a risk. Again, I was literally
it's a crazy risk.
Generational,
but it's risky.
I think when you have the chance, just for someone who could turn around your franchise and could be the result of like long-term success, I think it's hard to pass up on that, especially when you're not going to get that chance many times. I
do not disagree. If the Giants end up with the number 1 pick on draft day, which I don't see happening, but like it's possible. But if the Giants end up with that number 1 overall pick, I'm not going to be able to sit here and say I'm mad when they take Caleb Williams.
No, no, completely. No one will be mad. But I think it's just the kind of thing where, yeah, I mean, I don't see any, like I said, I think there are a select few quarterbacks that I would rather have over Caleb Williams. But let's move on quickly. Let's talk NFL MVP. Obviously we're, not halfway through, close. Let's each quickly go over which player we think is winning it and why. Charlie, I'll go to you first.
This is going to be a really weird one. It's going to sound weird coming out of my mouth, but it's the clear NFL MVP for me. It's Christian McCaffrey. This is the definition of the most valuable player in the league. They're 5-0, and McCaffrey has they were 5-0, and McCaffrey had 553 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, 177 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns for 43 first downs total. This is the best weapon in the NFL and the most valuable player. He gets hurt, they lose a game. It's that simple.
And 12 consecutive games scoring a touchdown, which is a record.
I think it's isn't it 15?
Or maybe 15. Yeah, it was. So
he's tied for second place, I believe.
Yeah. Serge, who is your?
This is the most valuable player.
Yeah.
Sticking with the non-quarterback theme, I'm going to go Tyreek Hill. I know a lot of people say, well, it should be Tua, but I think if you replace either of these guys, who is more important to this offense, I would say Tyreek. Even though Tua is a quarterback, I still think he's just such a key part to McDaniel's motion offense and everything that goes along with it. So I'm going to go Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill, I saw today, he's on pace for 2,300 receiving yards this year.
Incredible.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's tough. And I completely agree. I don't think there has been an incredibly standout quarterback this year.
Yeah. I think if there's one, it's Brock Purdy, though.
It's gonna sound crazy. I think that one of the most standout guys has been CJ Stroud. I think you could argue CJ Stroud.
No chance. Chance.
Then again, I'm not saying he's gonna win MVP, and that's not my pick. But I'm saying in terms of standout, I mean, there's really been no quarterback that's been like, yeah, Brock Purdy's been good and they've won games, but Brock Purdy hasn't been like, oh, he.
But
did,
for
no
me, CJ Stroud has been standout for a rookie. I don't think CJ Stroud's been standout in the sense that his name's going to be in that conversation when it comes time. He's been really good, but if we're looking at a quarterback, he's not been top 5 in the league. He's been the best rookie by far, but he has not been
Mhm.
top 5 in the league.
I
I
don't say
agree.
he's been top 5. I think he's been top 10, but I don't think there has been a super elite quarterback. So I think that's the only reason why he would fit into that conversation. Again, I'm not saying he'll MVP. I'll probably go Tyreek Hill as well. I don't know. Maybe McCaffrey. I think the MVP's up in there. I think Aiden Hutchinson, if he continues how he's playing, he could be in the mix for that. Micah Parsons slowed down a little. That would have been my pick a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think that we are very much looking at a year where it may be a non-quarterback wins MVP because there just hasn't been a Lamar Jackson MVP season.
But
Mahomes, Rodgers.
we're
So
also
that's
looking at a season where we could see a quarterback emerge through the next 12 weeks and show
yeah.
off and just show out. And we could see someone like Joe Burrow, who had a poor first 5 weeks to start the season, first 6 weeks to start the season, just go crazy and end up with 40 touchdowns. So there's a lot of while there's not a great standout quarterback right now, that means there's a lot of room for a standout quarterback to show up.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Episode 13 comes to a close. Thank you all so much for watching on YouTube, listening on your listening platforms. Keith McDermott, Charlie Nadell, Suraj Kadali. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on social media. All of the links are in the description down below. If you are listening, give us 5 stars. If you are watching, subscribe to the channel. We are trying to get 2,000 subscribers. That's our goal, is 2,000 before 2024. So that's our goal. The NFL season
Not
pushes
bad.
along. Obviously, if you guys are well as soccer fans, we do soccer content as well. We try and get an episode out midweek each week. So hopefully we can do that this week, although we may not, just because there has been no Premier League, which is what we're centered around. But we always keep you updated on our Instagram. So make sure you follow us there at the Back Pocket Pod. And as well, you can follow all of us on social media because Surge has Instagram now. So now we can tag him in our stuff. God bless. Thank you all so much for watching. And we will see you next time. Have a great Monday or Tuesday. See you later.